And welcome to your weekly Storm Game podcast.
Welcome.
Yep, thank you. I'm Pierce. We got Jason and GPS official John Marco join us. Speaking of official, so Jason, starting this out, you're a official blue check mark on Twitter, and Twitter is having a massive security breach with all these people being hacked, from Kanye here to Bill Gates to Obama to you name it. What's the perspective on your side? I heard they shut down all of them.
Dude, it was like losing my penis. It was like seriously horrible not being able to tweet for those 2 hours. I did not know what to do.
Yeah, a real sacrifice.
It's like someone just came in with a sword and chopped off my dick. It sucked ass. That's the best analogy I have for it. So I was vicariously through Maria, who, you remember Maria. She was on the podcast. If you don't remember Maria, go follow her. Like everyone who's watching, if anyone's actually watching. But go follow her. She's awesome. I was just tweeting vicariously through her. I was sending her DMs. Please tweet this. She actually didn't, but I tried.
Do we know which account it got started with?
I do not.
I mean, I guess you're saying which one they posted.
I think the first one I saw come across the board was what's his name? Yeezy. The fellow presidential candidate who missed 18 deadlines or something for states.
Yeah. So I don't think you can mathematically win it, even if you tried. Well, so what did you do for those 2 hours? How did you cope?
I cried. I did a couple of shots of whiskey. Cried some more. I binge ate a couple of cans of SpaghettiOs and just all the classic things that you do. I really wish I would have had a sheet cake. I would have played some Lisa Loeb and cried myself to sleep, and but I was able to pull it together, and I'm here. It's just
you made it.
A little rough though. It still hurts. It's still fresh.
Well, you made it. It's okay, man.
So yeah. Have either of you actually seen the tweet? So it seems, as far as I can tell, it seems like each one was copy pasted the same thing.
Yeah, it was completely stupid. It's please send me money and I will send it back to you.
Yes, I'm giving back to the community. All Bitcoin sent to the address below will be sent back doubled. If you send 1,000, I will send back 2,000. Only doing this for 30 minutes.
Yeah, Joe Biden even did it, apparently.
This reminds me of the RuneScape gold doubling scammers. All right? I don't know if you guys...
remember South African princes from when email first existed?
Yeah. We're talking old school, early 2000s scams.
I never got involved in the RuneScape gold scam, but can you please expand? Because I'm really curious.
Yeah, all right. So the way the RuneScape gold scam works, you would have the dude in whatever the most populous congregation area is, and you'd just be saying doubling gold, just message me or whatever, right? And you have to be physically proximate to trade. So people would go there and they would give him money, like just gold, right? But here's the thing, he'd actually double gold. All right. So you give him 1,000, gold, which is nothing. It's, I don't know, 10 cents maybe, right? He'd give you back 2,000. And then he ends up getting a crowd around him every time. You get a crowd around him because who doesn't like free money, right? And it starts to take time, right? It starts to take time. So eventually some person's going to get impatient, and rather than waiting for his cue or whatever, he's going to go I've got 100K for you to double for me. And, at that point, dude just takes it and cashes out. And you never see from him again.
That's genius. And those people must have been very oh, he's so generous, so just do it. But anything that involves taking something away from you in terms of capital, you should always look through very carefully.
Yeah. If he wanted to give people, money, there's no reason why he needs to say, I need to take your money first.
Exactly. If you're just literally giving people money, why do you need me to give you money?
You guys remember those Facebook scams, where someone on your friends list would get hacked and they'd send you a message, I'm in Mexico and I've been arrested and my passport has been confiscated and all of this stuff.
Yeah, they have
me $500 via PayPal.
Or I wasn't hacked, but somebody made an account with my photo and name and messaged people that they could find were connected to me. Yeah, that happened to me last year.
Damn, it's still going on. I haven't had Facebook since 2008, so
yeah. I'm not the good thing, but like the doable thing about the MySpace scams back in the day is that social media was so infinite at the time that it was verifiable enough if you got a message from someone on any of them that you believe it. But now you can check on people through like Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, etc. So you have some forms of identification or two-factor identification, I should say.
True, if they have it turned on.
Yeah.
But like all verified accounts are supposed to have two-factor verification turned on, to where you're supposed to get like a text message when you try to log in to verify that you've logged in, and
I'm gonna guess you don't, judging by.
No, I did not for this whole scam, but I do have on a regular basis. I do have the whole two-factor identification thing turned on because it's required for your blue check mark. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
What's that Senate bill that Graham is pushing about encryption? Lawful Access to Encrypted Data Act. There we go. Have you guys been keeping up with that? I think it's been swept hopefully under the rug and not reported nearly enough considering everything that's going on.
I actually haven't. So what should I search? Encryption Senate bill?
Yeah, encryption, Lindsey Graham. It's called the Lawful Access to Encrypted Data Act. But essentially, you remember the San Bernardino shootings and how the authorities wanted Apple to create a backdoor to access the iPhones of the perpetrator? Yeah, this is kind of like coming back to that. There's, for the sake of enforcing certain laws and protecting people, they are requesting, or this way it'll be a requirement, with the Attorney General's sole discretion to pretty much force companies that use encrypted, end-to-end encrypted messaging service to have access to those messages, basically. I have to read the fine print exactly, and it raises a lot of red flags for me personally.
So, that's one of the great things about having an iPhone is the fact that Apple offers that extra level of security, and they won't let authorities into your phone. It's so that's one of the pros of buying Apple. Android's done it millions of times where they've let people into phones and stuff, and created backdoors for the government. But that was always one of the pros of having Apple. So if something like this passes, that was tough ball.
Personally, I don't know though the level in which the law, if passed, would give would give the Attorney General the ability to basically force a company like Apple to do it. And I'm sure there'll be a huge legal fight if it goes to pass, but it's something I've been trying to keep an eye on. With everything going on, it's difficult, but it's definitely something that's there.
So, in my opinion, that is a colossally stupid decision in regards to international business, because what you're saying is basically any non-US company now has to question whether they're going to, have secure communications whenever they use your platform or device. That's right. Earn It is actually not the bill that John Marco was just mentioning. I was looking this up. Senator Graham is the one that John Marco just talked about.
Yeah, I heard about the Earn It Act too. I thought it was related for some reason. That's the first.
So the Earn It Act is a different bill going on right now. Hey, Sue, thank you so much. I love you. All right, I love you. You're not my favorite person. There are two different ones, but me reading through the Stanford cyber law assessment of Senator Graham's bill, it is a ban on providers from offering end-to-end encryption online services if they do not also consent to allow law enforcement organizations to receive those communications unencrypted if requested.
I think that's one I was referring to.
Yeah, that's the one you're referring to. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so
it's a very stupid idea just in terms of business. So right now, the United States has a technological, superiority. Just we're first in the race. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Google, right? And
you're good, Aiden.
We don't always have to be in first. So anything that would give our other nations a competitive advantage literally means that we lose out on money, we lose out on revenue, right? And we lose out on cultural influence. So just as a whole, this seems like a very, very dumb idea. The benefit to it, yes, all right, so law enforcement are able to better solve crimes. That's going to have, some wins and some losses to it, because obviously some people can think of how that can be abused. But just as a whole, like, if law enforcement wants to capture certain communications, like anything that's with encryption is basically supposed to be secured for the purpose of that encryption, right? Like, let me actually transfer this to the physical medium. So you get a letter and you mail that letter to someone else, right? The United States government can't open that letter, all right? That's not something they're allowed to do. Law enforcement, they're not allowed to do that. They have to get an actual warrant in order to open mail after it's arrived. Because that's the other thing I wanted to mention. They can't do it like while it's in transit. They can't like open up your letter and then like read it and then like seal it back and like send it on its way as if nothing ever happened. Even if the government has a warrant, it still gets to its recipient, and then they're allowed to confiscate it as part of the purview of that warrant. But getting through the warrant has a whole judicial process where the judge has to agree that this individual meets the requirements for the warrant. I'm not a legal expert, but it would basically be, yes, there's reasonable suspicion that this person is going to have intelligence of value in the case, and reasonable suspicion that this person is also committed. There we go. A infraction that warrants you to discover that intelligence. So you have to think of both. You can't just think like, oh, he did it, I want to see his comms. That's not good enough. You have to think, oh, he did it, I want to see his comms because I also think this specific thing is in his comms.
Yeah.
And you can't just think, oh, I think this might be in his comms. You give me a warrant. That's not good enough either. Again, you have to like actually think he did it. Now, again, I'm not a legal expert, so don't take me. I could be wrong on that.
Well, does the same thing apply for like UPS and FedEx and DHL and? Well, DHL is primarily international, so wouldn't that like have to go through like Interpol and all that, or?
So I mean, I'm just talking about United States communications, right?
Yeah.
Like I was just using you mail a letter as an example.
Yeah.
And so, like, the online version of that, I believe the arguments that advocates for it have been saying or reasoning with is that these are private companies handling these communications, not so much a courier service per se. Right. I'm not a legal expert either, but that's my understanding as to how they rationalize it.
Right. So, me just having skimmed this, my impression is that the purpose of Graham's bill is to get around the warrant requirement.
Yeah.
All right. Which is a blatant infringement of everyone's Fourth Amendment right.
Well, isn't the Patriot Act still a thing to where they could get around it anyway?
So the Patriot Act, first off, I would assess as being primarily not on the kosher side of things. The Patriot Act has gone through several transformations from its inception to where it is now, right? So the post 9/11, like after 9/11 happened, Americans were basically scared and they called a Patriot Act and it went through. And in my opinion, it was a pretty flagrant violation of our rights. And in fact, like NSA as an example, they haven't bluntly said, oh, hey, this was wrong, but they have said, oh, hey, this is right now. Okay? Like, note the difference,
Well, I mean, that's like the whole, what's his name, Snowden thing, like what he was like afraid of and what he was leaking and stuff, right? The fact that the government had access to everyone's info.
So Snowden for me is very much a hot topic because I believe that Snowden was a compromised Russian agent, to be frank, and that's a very long, I suppose, conversation that I would be very hesitant to have on camera. But suffice it to say, based on the research that I have conducted, I believe that Russia actually was a compromised, I'm sorry, that Snowden was a compromised Russian agent. So with that in mind, the lens that you look at things, in the information here revealed can be different. So what's the best way to disseminate falsehood? The answer to that question is to mix it with truth, right? So without
that's what con men do all the time. You know, they have a healthy dose of truth in order to make their lies work.
Yeah, exactly. I
mean, that's why cults are successful. That's why, you know, certain movements are successful and everything like that. So
yeah, exactly. So without a doubt, and I'm not going to give specifics, but without a doubt, you know, Snowden released some information that was rightfully concerning, right? And a lot of that information, which he indiscriminately released to the news organizations, it definitely does not paint the United States in the best of light, right? And we're not perfect. We're far from perfect. The United States has tons and tons and tons of problems, right? And I would think that with the desire to see us improve on those problems, which, you know, he claims like, oh, I'm trying to bring these things out into the air so that way we could actually work on them. He's trying to be a whistleblower. I would think that if that were the case, the information leaked would have been a bit more disparate. And I think that he would have followed through on releasing negative information about non-US and US partnered nations that he would have had access to. It's just like working through that logically, you know. It, as far as I could tell, seemed to be a directly motivated attack. And if you want to read more onto this line of theory, he gave an interview with the South China Daily where he actually confessed to saying that the reason why he took this job was to break the classified communications and divulge them. That was pre-intent. So the original story that we had was, oh, hey, I discovered something wrong when I was in, and then I chose to do it later, right? But reality was, it was very much a predetermined attempt. Going through that more, he actually gained access to more documents. Like, you're supposed to think of him as a technical wizard, right?
Yeah.
But although he is a very highly intelligent individual, don't misunderstand me, he does have technical prowess. Even as the IT administrator, that doesn't mean that you suddenly have access to everything. Even as a super user, information in these systems is fragmented. You still don't have access to everything, right? So one of the ways that he gained access to things that he wasn't supposed to gain access to was by capturing other users' passwords. A user with access to see something would go in and he would say like, all right, log on to your account so I can fix whatever your IT problem is. And then he has a keylogger match their thing. This was reported, I don't remember exactly where, but you know, that is an extraordinarily unethical way to, you know, whistleblow. If whistleblowing is your intention, that's extraordinarily unethical. Every single person whose passwords that he captured in that manner got fired, by the way. Which, you know, it's shit for them, right? I mean, they're like, what, again, whether you agree with the job you're doing or not, like I promise you, as a whole, most people that work in this field believe they're doing it with the right intentions, right? They think that they're serving this country. So they all got fired, and what they got fired for was believing that this IT guy was actually helping them, right? Yeah. An IT guy on the inside. It's not like some random Joe Schmo, you know, is calling you.
They call a Geek Squad and said, "Hey, Best Buy's like a mile away. Can you be here in 5 minutes?"
Yeah. So you know, it's
following along here. The
direct casualties from this. Like, all in all, it's a very ugly situation. So anyway, to like go back to your point though of like, was the United States doing things that they should or shouldn't be doing? Legally speaking, as well as just, you know, in lines with the spirit, because sometimes you create a law that constitutional law cases will ultimately overturn, right? So just because something's legal right now doesn't mean it's supposed to be legal.
Yeah.
That's a more complicated question, whether what the NSA has been doing has been right or wrong. I would suggest to you as a rule of thumb that in 2012, they were doing far more hits than misses, I would suggest to you. There is a court called the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. This is unclassified information that would actually process the warrants for any communications. And furthermore, on that note, the NSA's purview is international communications. And it's not international communications of US citizens, it's just international communications of non-US citizens. So that's the thing about the espionage world. Like, Americans get American rights, okay? Non-Americans don't get American rights. You know, like Israel spying on everybody, Russia spying on everybody, China spying on everybody. The problem is NSA managed to kind of get caught due to that internal leak, you know, and because the nature of the business, they're more secretive, you know, they're not gonna just bluntly say, oh, hey, this is how it works. This is how we're innocent. They just basically had to like dig their head in the sand and hope it blew over. It's hard to prove your innocence when you're not willing to prove your innocence, because proving your innocence would damage your ability to be an effective intelligence gathering resource, right? So anyway, it's all complicated. It's nowhere near as black and white as people wanted to conclude. And nuance these days seems very frequently lost. So
yeah, you can't be black and white on anything nowadays. Like it's impossible. Like the entire world is like a shade of gray. There are very few moments where it's like right or wrong.
Yeah.
At this point.
On that scale, black and white, a shade of gray for Edward Snowden is he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
To be honest, you know, which I know.
I mean,
popular in the
Oliver Stone movie was pretty good, except, you know, it portrayed him to be kind of like, you know, a narcissistic twat, but, you know, who was emotionally abusive.
Here's the real kicker, all right? And yes, you have like tons of accounts of people saying that he's a garbage guy, all right? But here's the real kicker. I genuinely believe that his first motivation was ego, all right? But past his first motivation of ego, I genuinely believe that his motivation was actually helping. I just don't agree with what he thought was helpful. You know, if that makes sense.
You could have done something different, basically.
Yeah.
Not just you're like, you know, what you choose to let out into the world and leak, but also the way in which you did everything too.
Yeah. Like, he claims that, you know, he attempted to bring this information through the proper channels, and that's just a flat out lie. You know, that's just a flat out lie.
Yeah, because the folks up there will be like, yeah, we know. Like, we're the ones doing this. Like, that's that? No.
I mean, that would actually be really funny if that was the case, you know? Like, if that was the response that he got, that would be pretty funny. And I would suggest to you, like, so there's a lot of things that you have to take on faith, right?
Yeah.
I would suggest to you proof that he did not actually try to bring it up through the proper channels is that he didn't give it. All right.
Yeah.
For I use the word attack, for an attack that was as premeditated and carefully planned and executed as this was, in an organization that records everything, he can't provide the communications that he, you know, attempted to bring up the chain to illustrate that there might be a problem, or what he perceived as being a problem. Like, no, I'm not buying it. Quite frankly, I'm not buying it. So yeah, there's my.
I'm cool with her.
I mean, I didn't think I was going to be talking about Snowden today.
Well, you never know where the hell this thing is going to go. We kind of do go off script all the time. So
yeah,
if there is even a script.
Welcome to the Storm Game Show, where there's no script, no points, and the points don't matter.
Yep.
We should do a game for this show, though, like something that we can play together. you know, that's like back and forth, you know, kind of like whose line is it anyways, you know?
That could work sometime, yeah.
Yeah. You should come up with something.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Today.
Oh, I got one. We find like next week, I'm going to prepare a list of like tweets, and you guys have to guess who tweeted him. And it'll be from pop culture and stuff like that. That'll be fun. I don't know.
I'm expecting to go 0 for 5 or however it is.
You know, John Marco's going to go 10 for 10.
Maybe we'll see. It all varies. Oh.
He keeps up with that stuff. He knew Kanye was running before I knew Kanye was running.
Yeah, and I'm like usually not as online as people think. I just happen to always be on at the right time. But yeah, I'm just trying to just not be on social media as often as possible, or just in general. Like, I have an application called Station, and it's kind of like, I think it's like a second taskbar. So like you have all your apps and everything. And what this is, think of it as just a taskbar for a productivity thing. So I turned that on. It has this entire sidebar where it's just, you know, my email, the Slack workspaces I'm in, etc. And I only focus on that. I'm sure they have a Facebook application they can put into the list of apps that you have, but I just don't. And I'm just like on full on focus mode when I do those things. And it's also nice, like it's having a few of these little bars open in the bottom instead of having like 50 Chrome tabs open. That's always just like, it always gives me an anxiety attack seeing how small the little tabs on top of my screen are getting. And like my poor computer. But yeah, I do say Chrome because it's the most popular one, but if you haven't checked out Brave, this isn't a plug or a sponsor or a horrible segue. I highly recommend Brave browser if you guys haven't tried it already.
They really need to change the name. That's racist. I learned this from the Redskins.
Brave is
brave.
An adjective, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll plus 1 Brave browser. Yeah, also recommend it.
Never tried it, never heard of it. I'm sticking to Safari.
Yeah.
And then now.
Oh, this is an interesting comment we're getting.
It's really long too.
Yeah, the whole espionage world is next level decisive. It's much less about nations versus nations, as is next suggested to people. It's much more about governments conspiring in the background to help each other manage the fate of their population with superficial conflicts. So, I like where you're going with this. All right, I do. Like, no shit, I like where you're going with this because it's showing.
We're entering that deep web sphere of influencing right now.
Wait, what's that, Jason?
The dark web or deep web or whatever it's called, a sphere of influence.
Yeah, the dark web. I think probably what you're talking about.
Yeah, they have this thing called the intellectual dark web, by the way, that I just found out about this week. You know, more so than
the Brett Weinsteins and all those folks.
Yeah, I thought it was, you know, pretty much just, you know, oh, there's a bunch of crazy people on 4chan. But no, apparently there are different sects of them, and one of them is, you know, the intellectual dark web, where these pseudoscience motherfuckers, like, you know, try to start race wars.
Yeah.
What I particularly like about Thomas's take here is that
so back to Thomas's take, right?
It challenges our fundamental premise of how we think about these things.
Okay.
So traditionally, we think, all these spies are taking in other countries for our national security and our national interests. But if we always base it off that, we'll never be able to, like, you know, it's just a different take on it, basically. So instead of looking at it that way, he's looking in the eyes of, like, you know, in what other ways, in terms of goals and ambitions, perhaps, depending on who's in power or depending on how society is looking, how the governments work, can the different resources we use also be affected in different ways?
Yeah.
Well, no, didn't we try to, like, who was the president when the chancellor of Germany's email got hacked or something? Was that Trump still in early 2016?
I think you're referring to the leak that the United States had Angela Merkel's phone on tap.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that's what you're referring to, right?
Something like that. We tried to use that negatively on her or something to, like, influence something.
If you are talking about the same incident, then no. If you're talking about, you might be talking about something that I don't know about.
It was so long ago, so I'm not even sure what the hell I'm talking about. I mean, it's like one of those superficial things that, like, you know, we get information on, you know, Joe Blow's, like, sexual preferences on like YouTube porn or whatever the hell it's called. What's that famous porn site? YouTube porn, RedTube, something like that. And try to use that against them publicly to like leverage some kind of better deal.
So blackmail certainly is like a tried and true political maneuver that's happened for millennia. All right. Whether to say anything like that happened, I don't know, but like that is part of the function I was supposed to like enable that option if you'd really think about it for foreign adversaries.
Yeah. So again, about like the whole like
that,
the superficial conflict things over, you know, stuff that you don't know about people. You know, or that people might not want to be known about them.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Have secrets for sure, but even past the point of like blackmail, sometimes there's just going to be something that you wouldn't be embarrassing, but you know, you would just rather not be public, right? Before I go back to Thomas's thing, I very much have the opinion of like espionage. Espionage is an interesting word. I'll say like foreign intelligence. All right. So foreign intelligence is interesting in that, quite frankly, especially the United States being the largest economy in the world, you have to play the game. All right. Like, especially when you have stated organizations as well. So you have a viable national security threat as well. But past that point, still, like, you have to play the game. I don't think any corporate espionage is fair or anything along those lines. But, you know, anything to the realm of national security and even just, you know, diplomatic squeezing, that blackmailing that you might have hinted at, like to perhaps further interests, like, you know, we as Americans, we should look out for American interests over the interests of rivals. Like there's nothing to be ashamed of in that, because they're also doing the same, as they should, quite frankly. You know, we should want peace and prosperity first and foremost, right? That's what we should always be aiming to achieve, a peaceful and prosperous world where, quite frankly, we all get along. That should be the first and foremost goal. But history has pretty well proven that you need to sometimes be a little bit more forceful and sometimes preventative in order to maintain that peace and prosperity. So, like, maintaining a rival advantage, I see no problems with. Again, that's just like
yeah, like I think espionage and foreign intelligence are two completely different things. Is what you're trying to say.
Actual execution, you know, well, then we can maybe sometimes hit some gray areas of like, no, that was not morally acceptable. But politically speaking, every nation plays the espionage game, and if you don't keep up, then you fall behind. And we have a lot riding on not falling behind. So, but anyway, so going back to Thomas's comment back here, right? So I like where you're going with that. For a few reasons. Like, one, you're being questioned, or like you're questioning things. You're trying to think of like, where are the incentives in the system, and like, how do things work behind the scenes, right? And I like that line of thought. I do, because it's very close to someone that gets it. All right. And actually, you know what? I'll throw you a bone. You're absolutely right in that shit totally goes down. Like, think of some African dictator. All right. You know, China builds his telecommunications infrastructure, right? So China now is also monitoring all of their communications, all of them, okay? And then African goes like, hey, you know, I know you really want to build this new military base in my country, but you know, these guys, they're being really dissident right now. There's a lot of unrest. I can't promise that I'm gonna still be in charge in 5 years to get you your military base. How about you help me, feed me some comms so I know who to make disappear in the middle of the night? That shit totally happens. 100%. All right.
That was the whole point of the show, TV show Burn Notice.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like I have no knowledge of that happening. I'm saying that this is happening not based on any form of direct knowledge whatsoever, but just like how the world works. 100%. You think like China's just building these, you know, infrastructures for free, or loans and whatnot out of the goodness of their heart. No, the Belt and Road Initiative is not out of goodness of their heart, right? So I just use China and Africa as an example. Is it reasonable to think that similar, things on the spectrum, as it were, happen between other nations? Yeah. I mean, like it's 100% reasonable to think that on that spectrum things are happening. Some cases are going to be much more brazen than others. The United States has an agreement with the United States, New Zealand, Great Britain, United Kingdom, Australia, and Canada to say, hey, we're not going to, we are going to afford your citizens the same protections we afford ours. All 5 of those nations agreed to do that, right? So what that means is, if you're not in one of those 5 nations, you're fair game. Like ally or not ally, right? And like between at varying levels, with how certain things sometimes get done in dark alleys, as it were. Like, yeah, shit happens, man. I can't like say I've seen any shit, but like it's I think it would be ignorant to think that it doesn't. 100%, because backs get scratched, man. Like that's the political currency of the world.
And what is the name of that group of countries? Okay, I thought it was being referenced in one of the not recent, I guess, James Bond movies. But yeah. It's interesting because like
Bond movie since like Pierce Brosnan left.
Oh, dude, actually, I think what is Daniel Craig? I believe his name is the new actor.
Yeah.
Or the current Bond. I think he's done tremendous.
I think it's Daniel Craig. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's done a tremendous good job, like humanizing James Bond in a lot of ways.
I can't wait until Tressa Thompson's version of him comes out. They've apparently signed her to be the next James Bond.
Interesting.
Which would be fucking bad, motherfucking ass. Like a female Bond. Fuck yes.
But going back to the Five Eyes thing, it's basically trust, though. You're taking every government's word that they're not going to spy on each other, or are there any binding ways of checking or agreeing or validating that?
Well, so I would suggest to you that trust is actually like tested every single day. So the purpose of that agreement isn't just to say, oh, hey, we're not going to spy on yours. The purpose of that agreement is also, all right, whatever good stuff you find out, you let me know, right? I mean, you don't have to let me know all of it. I understand if you want to keep some of it to yourself, but like as a whole, we're stronger together, right? Like it's the whole point of having allies. Stronger together, like just back in World War II as an example, the British intelligence was on point and they discovered tons and tons of things that they themselves weren't able to act on, but the United States was, right? So, that alliance, right? Like that's what it is today. It's a modern day alliance. So when they're sharing all this love, all this information, and you're not acting on something potentially vulnerable, or you're not exploiting something, or you're not revealing something like that, I would suggest to you is probably the day-to-day test that the participants are keeping true to their word.
That's dope. Yeah. Let's just try to build a society or utopia where that doesn't even have to exist because we all got each other.
Yeah, dude, like the ultimate, like the goal, right, would be where the entire world is to the level of agreement that we can all be like in the organization, and quite frankly, dismantle the need for the foreign intelligence apparatuses in the entire first place. Like that would be the utopic world, 100%. Unfortunately, that's not
the basis of every fucking good movie dies.
Yeah.
What was that? Every good movie dies?
Yeah, the basis of every like good movie that could possibly be made dies. I mean, think about that. You take away spying and governments fighting each other. Like
you just have to make them period pieces, Jason.
Every fucking book that you buy to get you through a plane ride. Freaking James Patterson and Tom Clancy have nothing after that. So,
but I'm all for alliances, man. Like nations with allies prosper. Nations without allies fall, right?
Yes.
And that's, I hate to do this. That's one of my biggest complaints about Trump. The fact that he's throwing all of our alliances just to the fucking wind. You know,
Yeah.
these are relationships that we've built over decades, and he's just pissing them away.
You want to know something I've always wondered? If we have a plan to ever invade Canada, like if we have a contingency plan.
Oh
to,
yeah, it's public information. What was it called?
Like that. Yeah. I think there's a book on it too that you can buy.
Yeah. What was War Plan Red? That was it.
What? Let's see what was called.
War Plan Orange was Japan. That was it. Yeah, War Plan Red.
Warplane Red is our plan to invade Canada.
Cool. In like the 30s or something. But yeah.
I don't know if we have a current plan, because Trump seems to hate fucking Trudeau enough to want to go like wipe him off the face of the planet.
So here's the thing about like military intelligence, right? You civilian, you hear the government has a plan to invade Canada. What you think is like, does that mean the government considered invading Canada at some point? No. All right, that's not what that means.
I was thinking that they considered it, but I find it funny that we have like the plan as a backup.
I'll tell you what it means. All right, it means one of two things happens. One, it meant someone thought, "Hey, better safe than sorry. Let's be prepared." Or two, it meant, you need practice. Give me a scenario where we invade Canada. All right, because the military is all about training. All right, like 90+% of your time as an average, military person is like spent.
Yeah, you're playing for what if.
Right. Yeah. The half the purpose of the military is about that what if, right? And then you're ready when that if actually happens.
Exactly. Yeah, and you have the resources. Just plan out as many war games as you can, because you never know. You might we'll never have to invade Canada, hopefully for whatever reason. But like, if in the case of, let's say, an alien race invades them, and we need to know logistically how to best enter Canada, we have that planned out.
Yeah, I like your thinking.
If they raise the cost of maple syrup one more quarter, god damn it.
Yeah. I mean, like we have a war plan versus zombies. All right. Like,
I want to read this.
It's never really about like the exact context of why this plan exists. It's more so like the application use of having such a plan.
Right. Like,
you learn a lot by planning in general.
Exactly. Working through the plans, you discover a lot of things, right? Mm-hmm. And you also hone your skills. And if the plan itself happens to be like a fun novel one, like zombies, like no shit, that plan exists. All right. Or Canada, like, I mean, why not? If you're paying a guy on salary, and his job is to write war plans, and there's already war plans for everybody that we actually might potentially go to war with. What do you tell them to do? Well, you tell them to make war plans for the ones we won't go to war with. So the existence of a war plan with an ally, it's nothing more than a novelty. It really is. But
that's when your economy is doing good, when you can afford that kind of.
Yeah, it's cool to think of it though, for sure.
Oh, please, our economy's in the shitter right now.
And all right, Thomas is not an optimist, but I'm gonna share his thought. A lot can change for sure. With all the changes that we're seeing in the world that will cause mass unemployment for automation, as well as just energy crisis. And I would be surprised if we don't have another energy crisis, even if it's not an oil crisis of some sort, right? Like the infrastructure grid can be taken down, not trivially easily, but like if you were to look at it, right, like there's a lot of points of failure that would create a cascading effect. Like if somebody wanted to do damage, it could be done with sufficient planning, right? So yeah, I would be shocked if we don't have another energy crisis, whether it's supply-based or whether it's delivery-based or whatever in our lives. And that's just one example, with all the unrest that comes from unemployment. Yeah, what sometimes was an ally one year is suddenly a rival the next year. And that's really unfortunate. It's one of the reasons, again, why I really want us to get allies we can trust, be great to them, don't be dicks to them, because the more allies you have, the better. It's time and time again. 100%.
But you guys were both talking at the same time for 5 seconds, and I couldn't understand either of you.
Oh, shit.
I said Zimbabwe. We really need to ally with them. I think they got some interesting shit working down there. I mean, a name like Zimbabwe and not be fucking cool.
true. I like how we have the Karens of the world, and now people are saying like the male name is called Chad. And then I kind of chuckled because I was also like looking at a map of Africa, and if I'm Chad, imagine if there's a country called Karen. I'm like, ah.
It's called America, man. It's called America. Oh, every time you say Chad, though, I immediately think of the hanging Chads in Florida from 2000 and how we got Bush. Not like porn star Bush, but I mean President Bush.
I'd rather not talk about that election.
Chads.
Think of it this way: what would you give to have President Bush as president right now? Like if it was between Bush and Trump.
Honestly, I could have lived with 4 years of Bush if you had 4 years of Gore.
No, I didn't like Gore.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I am not familiar enough on Al Gore to have developed a strong impression.
I am 100% like I am so far left that if I turned around, I'd be fucking a right-wing Politico in the ass. But like I could not get on board with Gore. He was just too out there.
All right. So if we want to go back to it, Thomas Lal says, hopefully I pronounced her name right, Lale, I don't know. Angela Merkel announced 1 million quick chargers for electric vehicles to come. That needs quadrupling the peak output. Tell me how this could be done, please. Also, I have to agree with you. By the way, China gets allies with infrastructure upgrades. Can America come up with something like the Belt and Road Initiative? So the best example for the U.S. doing a Belt and Road Initiative would be the Marshall Plan. After World War II, where we basically gave money to all these countries to help them rebuild. And ostensibly, there were no strings attached. Ostensibly, there were no strings attached. We said, like we even actually offered the Soviet Union money under the Marshall Plan. All right, it wasn't a pure anti-communist play. Soviet Union at a national prestige said no. But plenty of countries were like, shit, yeah, we got to rebuild. We'll take some money, right? And even though there was no strings attached ostensibly, that bought a ton of goodwill and favor. And we got embassies throughout the world. And, it's really one of the things that pole vaulted the United States to the top of the, global ranking order, right?
Yeah.
And I would guess that we're still there today, but we're a lot more
about the Belt and Road Initiative that China is doing. They're building the infrastructure and everything in Africa, which is like the richest in all the minerals now that we need for cell phones.
Right.
They still have so much oil that's untapped and unlike welled in Africa. They like once that infrastructure is built and stuff, and China has those friendly relationships, we're going to get our asses kicked. I think Cheney, when he was controlling Bush and everything, tried something similar by just going to war with the entire Middle East to take over their oil. But that didn't necessarily work out. So I think that might be the last time we try something like the Belt and Road Initiative is the entire like Middle Eastern conflict that we've been stuck in for like close to 30 years now.
So I certainly would not call that anything like either the Marshall Plan or the Belt and Road Initiative. Because
think about it, when they were to blow them up to rebuild them so they would give us oil, essentially.
Dude, I wish it was about oil. I really do. It's not. It's easy to look at it that way, and it's definitely not to say like oil wasn't a consideration. Like, of course, energy security was a consideration, right? But it's not about oil. It's not like we were imperialists coming in and being like, oh, hey, we're gonna take your oil now, right?
Yeah, I get the feeling that Osama was a horrible human being, and we needed a reason to go and we wanted to go after Osama, but I just think there were friendlier ways to kill them both. I mean,
well, so we fucked up in the Middle East hard. All right, I'm saying this loud and clear for everyone watching. We have fucked up in the Middle East hard.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Middle East, of course, is a larger area with a bunch of intertwined conflicts that we've fucked up individually for different reasons and a lot of overlapping reasons as well. So, Iraq and Afghanistan as an examples, they're two different scenarios. We fucked them both, all right? but they're different scenarios, right? So like Afghanistan, actually, just as I'll say Iraq as well, our biggest problem to them has been removing the current government and then not providing a follow-on stable government. All right. So what we tried to do was say, hey, here's democracy. We know that you, the populace, don't have any experience with democracy, but here's democracy. You have it now. Hope it works out for you. And then we get to go all shocked Pikachu when it doesn't. I mean, like you can ask one of the dumbest Americans on the planet, and you ask him like, what would keep democracy strong? What's the best way to keep democracy working? You know, and the answer you're going to get is education, information.
Yeah.
Right. Like 100%.
Okay. In all fairness, though, unless you ask that question to anyone that lives between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania, that's just a different breed there. Don't ask those people questions at all. Anyone that's from Pennsylvania and I've offended, whatever.
I happen to like Amish country in Harrisburg. Thank you very much. But anyway.
You see this thing about tweet from Aiden, or this like about Turkey? I'm showing it right now.
Oh shoot, no, I didn't read that one. What about nations like Turkey? You need them for their geography, but they just don't cooperate. Oh boy. Okay, so
let's get into the entire Baltic argument, because like it's really funny, because when I was with the Armed Forces Entertainment going through there and everything, we have bases all throughout there. So I've been to every single Baltic place and in multiple places in every single Baltic country.
Well, I mean, the Baltic countries are actually like super chill allies, dude.
Yeah,
like no shit. So
now they are, like, you know, and everything. But after all the civil war and everything that happened here after the fall of the Soviet Union, which was horrible, like they're pretty much all cool. But like Turkey is still part of the Baltic region, I would say, right?
No, Turkey's in the Mediterranean. Baltic is like
still on the Mediterranean Sea.
Latvia. So they're both next to Russia, if that's what you're getting at. I mean,
yeah, like, Russia and China border a lot of countries.
Yeah,
like a lot.
They're massive countries.
You're talking like almost half the time zones are in fucking Russia.
yeah, Russia's freaking massive. But no, if you need to look at it one way, Turkey is south and Baltics are north.
You guys were both talking at the same time again for 5 seconds.
That's why I stopped, and Pierce stopped too, thinking that we were both going to finish each other's thoughts or finish our own thoughts. But mine was just, you know, making a joke on Sarah Palin, you know, how she walks out her front door and she's in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and can shake hands with Putin.
Yeah. The mayor of Wasilla, I don't think was maybe ready to be vice president, but I think McCain actually partly lost because he chose Palin, but that's another thing. It was a clear attempt to garner the female vote. It's like, oh, Hillary Clinton lost. All right, I can ask my VP. Check out double X chromosomes. Huh? No. You know, like me, I care about who you are. You know.
There were so many better like Republican women he could have chosen. Like if he wanted a female that go around.
Yeah, I do actually also wonder like why choose Palin why not others? But yeah, you know, whatever. That was his mistake. All right, so where
she played Sarah.
Sorry,
that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. All right, so like where should I stab on this? Should I talk Turkey? Should I talk electric vehicles? Should I talk Chinese maglev? You know. All right, we'll go with
Oh shit! Speaking of the like the Mediterranean and everything, like one of the coolest fucking things about going through Croatia, the best fucking Mexican restaurant I've ever been to is in Croatia. I shit you not.
I believe it.
It's kind of like saying one of the best Mexican restaurants in the United States is in Storm Lake.
Hey, that's true though.
I never thought I was kidding.
Oh, man. I ate like 30 tacos last week when I was in Los Angeles, and like fucking none of them tasted like fucking the ones in Storm Lake. It had to be something to do with the Tyson processing plant and like from the burning flesh and like feathers getting into it.
Super fresh, guys.
I never ordered the pollo. I only ordered the beef and like the asada.
They were all good.
They were.
They were all good for sure.
Yeah.
Storm Lake has some charm to it.
Storm Lake has tacos and a McDonald's. That's it.
If you can get over the smell of pig anus that's just in the air, Storm Lake's a really cool town.
No, it doesn't happen all the time. It's just like when certain times of the week, I think it was, that the smell is there. But aside from that, it's beautiful. Like I wonder what it's like over the summer. Jesus.
Yeah. Well, we can go back there, like do a family reunion.
In about 3 years, I'd say, right? Get the gang back together.
Yeah.
I think just like another, wait till next summer. Like,
wow, this looks beautiful during the summer. All right, man. I'm just googling some Storm Lake, Iowa summer photos. Man, that looks. Yeah, we definitely went at the wrong time, I'd say.
You've got me curious enough to look now. Oh man, yeah.
Could you imagine how beautiful that deck would have fucking been where we were staying at, like during the summer? The view of the lake.
Damn. Yeah.
Like shit.
I'll throw it up on the screen so
you know how to do that, so do that. I don't.
takes a second sometimes.
And then after that, we've got to get on to Turkey because we have requests.
Wow, that is
a funny photo.
Yeah, that did not do.
Donald Trump's hands, man. Like that is like so small. I mean, it's like that leaked nude of his.
So is all right. Well, you know what? That maybe didn't work out as well as I'd hoped.
Yeah.
So be it. All right, screw it. It's pretty. You can all Google search Storm Lake summer if you all want. It's all good.
All right, so back to turkey. I like mine, oven roasted on a sandwich. Generally toasted with mayo and a little bit of French dressing.
Yeah. All right. So the easiest way to look at turkey is that their priorities have changed. That's the first thing I gotta say. So like decades ago, Turkey's interests are different than Turkey's interests now. And right now, Turkey's interests are actually one man named Erdogan, Erdogan, who has very effectively assumed a dictatorship in all but name. We've witnessed this unfold over the last 6 years.
He basically pulled a Putin, only faster.
Yes, yeah. He's Vladimir Putin of Turkey for sure. So Turkey, past that point, recognizing that their interests have changed because now they're under this one individual's leadership and being bent to their whim. Past that point, it's also worth recognizing that Turkey has long always been the strongest regional player, and I'm talking like you can go back centuries, all right? So Turkey is quite frankly used to having lots of pull in the area. They're used to other nations, coming to them.
Yeah. The time of the Ottoman Empire.
Right. Yeah. The Ottoman Empire was huge, for example. It might have been called the sick man of Europe prior to World War I, but that didn't stop them from, quite frankly, accomplishing a lot from a military perspective and still, just existing for hundreds of years. So, what was I going with that? So like current day, right? So current day, they still have a much larger military than the nations around them. They control access to the Black Sea, which is Russia's only warm or winter weather port. So it's worth noting that all the other ports that Russia has, they're all in the north, and they freeze.
And a bunch of other places, they just fucking freeze over.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is hilarious.
Right. So it's actually rather expensive to run navies out of waters that freeze. Who would have thought? So the Black Sea has an immense strategic value to Russia, just alone, let alone Ukraine. But Russia alone. And Turkey has 100% naval control access for those ports, right? So that gives Turkey some leverage over Russia. Russia happens to still be a much bigger player than Turkey, right? So for the past several decades, Turkey's line of thinking was, well, we don't need Russia, and we don't have to unnecessarily antagonize Russia, but we don't need Russia. We got the United States on our back, and the United States has more money and is a better ally, and we're cool with them, right? More recently, however, again, since Turkey is following the demands of Erdogan, a common trend among authoritarians is to like other authoritarians, all right? It may be difficult to get a nation of 8 million or 30 million or 300 million to work with you and like you. But getting one person to like you, that's a lot more doable, right? So I just contrasted a democracy with a autocracy, right? So when you want to be effective and decisive and make actions happen quickly, it's quite frankly, it's easier to work with one person, with less people, right? And Putin is one of the world's most famous authoritarian leaders right now, right? So Erdogan's discovered, hey, even though you and I might not see eye to eye sometimes, maybe it's easy enough to pick up the phone and see what you're willing to offer. And then he's willing to pick up the phone to Trump and say, hey, so what are you willing to offer? And kind of instigate a bidding war and just come out on the top of whatever the disagreement happens to be. Thomas right here, he's pointing out something. Culturally speaking, Turkey has wanted to be Europe for over a century, dude. It's almost surprising considering 2% or something of their land is in Europe and the rest is considered to be in the Middle East. But like culturally speaking, Turkey has always wanted to be in Europe. They've wanted to be with the cool kids, as it were. And they've accordingly also been better developed than most of their other neighbors because of it. And I can't say that we weren't perfect in keeping them close to us either. We could have definitely worked harder to keep them as allies. But ultimately, that is kind of difficult these days when the entire country is being run by one guy, and you're more appealing to that one guy rather than the people. And for what it's worth, it's not like Erdogan's unpopular. Erdogan is actually kind of similar to Trump in that he does enjoy a lot of local support, and a lot of that local support is rather passionate about him. So Erdogan's not a dictator that doesn't have the support of the people. He's a controversial figure, and his dissent is being silenced. But a lot of Turks really do like him. He's not like a warlord that people fear first and like second. He's a dictator that a lot of people are liking first and fearing second. I would say that's my impression, at least.
Yes, I think that's a good way of putting it. And it's important to know for those not aware, whoever's watching, if you haven't, in terms of very topical, important historic world events, if you haven't read into the recent amendments to the Russian Constitution, it is strongly recommended that you do. The short of it is that by changing the wordings in certain ways and changing certain things about it, it will effectively allow Putin to, give Putin the opportunity through elections to be in power essentially for the rest of his life at this point.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, and Hong Kong we're watching Hong Kong. Hong Kong is no longer a democracy as of a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Let's just be real. Hong Kong is no longer a democracy. We're watching that happen before our eyes.
And it is extraordinarily unfortunate. Both China and Russia are making some major things that will go in the history books very quickly in terms of how they're going to affect world affairs in the coming years and maybe even decades.
I actually really like the United Kingdom's response to Hong Kong's current, clamp down on democracy. Their response was basically, I'm oversimplifying it, but their response was basically, all right, you want UK citizenship? You've got it.
That's amazing.
Millions of Hong Kong citizens.
That is awesome. I wonder. I mean, I'm sure the news was well received, but I can't imagine the amount of people that just always have found Hong Kong just home.
Yeah, that's the sad thing. It still is their home, so
but
we're not going to take it.
At the same time, like I would give if I was in Hong Kong, I would give so much props to the UK for pretty much throwing them a lifeline to just be an opportunity to live in some semblance of freedom compared to what they're going through right now.
Yeah.
I remember in '99 when like the lease on it like went up and like how furious my dad was. He was like throwing shit at the TV that like Britain didn't like fight to extend the lease to prevent Hong Kong from going back under Chinese control.
Well, Britain actually surrendered Hong Kong early.
Yeah, like what was it, a year early? Because it was a 100-year lease, wasn't it?
It was a 100-year lease.
Yeah.
I don't remember how many years early. Hong Kong.
A year or so early, I think.
What was it? 1997. When did Britain lease of Hong Kong?
I'm pretty sure it was 97 because that's when Rush Hour came out, or like
98. Oh, I guess it was a year early. My bad.
Yeah.
It was a year early.
It was 97, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one thing Rush Hour taught me, man.
Yeah. So it was a year early. My bad. I thought it was like 4 or something years early. I was wrong. Yeah, dude. Like
we were all a little bit wrong. It's okay, and we were all a little bit right.
Yeah. Well,
collectively, we all knew the answer.
Well, I mean, let's be real. If Britain didn't return to Hong Kong, that would be pretty imperialist.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty imperialist. That would be pretty not cool. That'd be beyond imperialist. That'd be very not cool.
No, yeah, it'd be very not cool for the simple sense that you are going back on your word, going back a century.
Right. So I think part of the logic was by giving it back early that they were able to, create some terms on their end, right?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways that can be seen like just like working on an agreement in good faith. Like we know we're going to do this so much, I want to give it to you early, and it's an even better deal.
Part of it, but I mean, like also they managed to secure democratic rights for the citizens of Hong Kong, right? Which have been slowly being eroded, but only over the last year has that erosion really like started to create the mudslide.
Yeah.
And I mean, like you said, 1997 as a switch off. So that's been 20 years, more or less, of like a semi-democratic government, which, I don't think that should be discounted. That's been 20-ish years of better self-rule that they were afforded that they might not have been afforded earlier. If Britain didn't hand it off early, like the only reason why China would have done it would have been for local populace, like keeping them happy, satisfied. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. To preemptively quell unrest. But yeah, like just from a negotiation standpoint, it made sense. But ultimately, yeah, still sad to see it happening today. Like I think if people recognized all the shit that is going on by China in the world, I don't think China would be getting away with it, to be frank. I think if people really knew everything that they were doing, they are debatably the most genocidal nation today. Actually, not debatably, they are. They are the most, there's an actual genocide occurring today in China. Millions of Uyghurs are being persecuted and killed and forcibly remarried to Han Chinese guys. So that way they're going to give birth to no longer pure Uyghur children. Their organs are being harvested. This is, basically the Western world though doesn't care because Uyghurs didn't immigrate and become part of our culture.
Yeah.
Like something like this happens in France, we care about that because, France made a huge part of our cultural identity. When this happens, even in Rwanda, right? Like we didn't intervene in Rwanda, but at least we knew about Rwanda. Like that was a huge story back then, right? Like That's because
a movie about it with Don Cheadle.
Yeah. Like we had a stronger cultural tie to Rwanda than we do to the Uyghur people. But it's devastating, dude.
Yeah. I think it's funny how we like don't get involved in stuff like this when we really should. We like call ourselves like the world's like police officers and stuff like this, but yet we never get involved in like massive stuff like this. It took forever for us to like get involved in World War II, and we knew about the genocide against the Jews, and we knew how they were being treated, and we just ignored it for so long. We turned ships full of Jews around and sent them back to Europe to their death because we're like, we don't really like you guys. You guys kind of suck. Go back. And it's just like, fuck. Yeah, just fuck. Like we can't call ourselves, an example to live up to if we're not going to be an example and stand up for people in a way, I just thought that to be like bullshit as far as we do as a country. Like, I think we should be standing up to like mass genocides everywhere. Like what's going on in Africa every day, still to this day. Like you have genocides occurring there every day. I mean, like, and what you brought up with the Uyghur people in China, and just, it's all bullshit. We should stand up.
I agree, yeah.
I mean, the problem then is, this is often how you get yourselves into another Afghanistan, right? I mean, I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate.
At least we have a legitimate, more so of a reason to do it now. Like with Afghanistan, we were going after like one person.
Well, it was to determine legitimate, right? Like China doesn't think that it would be legitimate for us if we, plopped into the Uyghur region and said, all right, we're, physically securing these millions of Uyghur residents. Who's to say what justice is and what's right?
I mean, we have a UN and we have a world court.
The UN? You mean the same UN that has a 5-nation Security Council where any of those 5 nations can veto any security resolution, and one of those nations is China?
I know. I'm just saying.
Note that another one is Russia, by the way.
Another one is Russia.
If you haven't seen God of War, it's an introduction to the concept. Or Lord of War, sorry.
It's just like, it just upsets me. I kind of feel like it's hypocritical in a way, So
ultimately, I think the American public has largely, again, lost the will to do that because of how badly we've screwed up recently. We've screwed up in Afghanistan. We've screwed up in Iraq. We screwed up in Somalia. We screwed up in Vietnam,
Screwed up in Korea kind of too.
I was about to say Korea's, kind of the gray area. Like South Korea is
yeah, we did fantastically, but what China built in North Korea is like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Korea could have gone differently, but I can't say that Korea did too bad. Like Korea could have gone a lot worse as well, so I don't consider Korea to be a failure. But yeah, like, we, over the decades,
we got everything below the 56th parallel, like good.
48th.
48th, sorry.
Yeah, like over the decades, we've bungled a lot of interventions, So the American public has justifiably so, I think, lost the political will to do so. Why should they have any faith that the next one would be different?
It's just all about the value of human life, man. That's my opinion.
That it's worth doing anyway. You know what, Jason? That's why I like you. All right, because you're right. Okay.
No matter how we fuck up, like those lives mean something.
You're right, because most of these conflicts is not actually a error in casus belli. It's not an error in justification of us going to war. It's an error in execution.
Yeah.
All right. Vietnam. That was North Vietnam invading the independent country of South Vietnam, right? South Vietnam being our ally.
They were killing, they were murdering, they were raping, and we went in there and we did our damnedest to put a stop to it.
We didn't do our damnedest to stop it.
Well, I mean, we also have to look at the fact of the types of troops we sent. Like my father went over there. Like, I mean, that was like his first theater that he was in, and he's like, I think I'm the only person that was here that wanted to like help people. Was his opinion of it, he's like everyone else, like, oh, when we go out, we shoot above their heads. We don't want to kill, man. We peace, love, and harmony, man.
Yeah. So
and he says those motherfuckers got their asses blown off.
Oh yeah. So structurally speaking, there were tons of problems. Ranging from recruitment to how we portrayed the war to also how we were willing to fight the war. But I'm saying that the fact that we were willing to go there wasn't a problem.
Yeah, it spoke to our character, and our character should be like come first. It's something we are the nation that protects the sanctity of human life.
Would disagree that we were there in the first place, so that's why I'm offering my opinion on the matter that no, it was right for us to be there.
Yeah.
Just as it was right for us to be in South Korea. And quite frankly, just as it was right for us to be in Afghanistan. All right. However, what we did after deciding, okay, we're going to go there, how we chose to be there, what our execution was, and what our plans for afterward were, maybe not the best.
Yeah, they kind of sucked.
Yeah. So, since we've been bungling it, it makes sense that people have just been not like turned off from it, like completely. You will be harder to find skeptics of war than military service members, because we're the guys that actually we're the ones that go off, right? Every veteran that you meet is gonna be a skeptic, and that doesn't mean that they're automatically going to be against any action. It just means that we want to see it done right, and for very complicated reasons, we haven't been.
Because we try to play politics with what's right in a way,
Thank you, Thomas. Well, yeah, I mean, it's always difficult. Like, there's a lot of things to balance in any of these things. You have to actually, first off, you have to have the money, and not just the money, but the resources, the personnel, and that's actually a much more difficult task than that it might sound, right?
Yeah.
Second off, you have to have a plan, okay? And that plan has to actually be a good plan, and that plan has to be rooted in actually good concepts and foundations, right? Which leads me to number 3, which is you have to also know the people. I don't just mean the American people, that goes into number 1.
The region that you're in, you have to know what is culture and discrepancies in language and lifestyle and
right. And you only get one chance to make a first impression. So I could tell you what we should have done in Afghanistan for Afghanistan to have actually worked for us, right? We can't do that now. That's the shitty thing. All right. I can tell you, we didn't lose Afghanistan, but we have lost Afghanistan.
Yeah.
We have lost Afghanistan, and we didn't need to at all. Totally preventable. But
I mean, if you want to go back far enough, the way that we played Afghanistan and everything is against Russia and everything during the Cold War, if we would have kept half of the promises that we made while using them to fight Russia in that secret war, what was it called? What was that senator's name?
Charlie Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. We kept half of the promises and everything to Afghanistan while fighting them in the war. Osama bin Laden would have never attacked us in the first place. 9/11 would have been completely preventable, if we would have just kept our promises and stuff. But they saw it as, oh, we're admitting that we helped them if we helped them after the war. We're admitting that we helped them fight it.
We did a lot of shady shit in the Cold War, dude.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that, in the international realm that you want to blast the U.S. for, a lot of it happens in the Cold War.
I know.
We did a whole lot of shady shit there, man. I'm of the opinion that morality, I think that you should judge a person's actions relative to the standards of the time. I can condemn, say, Thomas Jefferson for owning slaves, right? But him owning slaves back then doesn't mean he was an evil person, right? Because culturally speaking, the foundations were the same. So at no point do I say, hey, Thomas Jefferson, good guy because he owned slaves. No. I say Thomas Jefferson, good guy despite owning slaves, right? Because by the standards of the day,
George Washington, good guy despite owning slaves. Like, that's and there's a lot of despites throughout history.
Yeah.
And that's like the sad part.
Yeah.
And
Anyway, I believe, should be wrapping it up. Thomas, thank you very much for being here. You too, Aiden, and everyone else. And Sue, you're still my favorite. Anyway, thanks for being here this week, guys. We'll hope you join us next week.
Threw up on you.
Remember, we can set up a system where all of us can talk at the same time and it doesn't cut everyone's audio at the same time.
No.
Yeah, hopefully we can figure that out. If you're joining us again next week, he was with us a couple weeks ago. So take care, stay safe, be healthy, keep your chin up, eyes forward, do everything you can, be nice to one another. America.
Anti-Semitism is wrong. Jews rock. We love you all.
Wash your hands.